What's up, everyone, and welcome to the BackWoods, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the hilarious of our outdoor adventures. Joining me in the woods today is Jared Cooke. He's a TikTok and Instagram influencer and a paleontologist in the making. My name is Daniel Turnipseed, and you're listening to the BackWoods. All right, guys, joining me from video call is Jared Cooke. Jared Cooke, welcome to the podcast. It's very awesome to have you on here as my first guest, considering the fact that the podcast is very brand new. So that's pretty cool. Before we get too deep into it, why don't you let the audience know exactly who you are, like where you got your start, and why you're into paleontology like you are.
Thanks for having me on. This is pretty cool. This is my first podcast too, so I'm going to remember this for a while. Basically, I'm a paleontology creator. So on TikTok and Instagram and whatnot, I'll post paleontology content, but I'm also a student at A&M now, majoring in zoology, and paleontology will be pursued specifically in my postgrad. So I'm hoping for a PhD. It's a little ambitious. I don't know. It's a difficult thing to pursue, but that's kind of where my goals are right now. And yeah, to answer your question, the way I started, like you said, actually, you were a herper, as was I, and you've kind of moved into fossil hunting a little bit as well. I was the same way. Basically, you know how during winter snakes brumate, right? And then we're just kind of a little for a whole winter because we're sifting through our photos and we're editing photos, maybe doing other stuff. But yeah, I was bored out of my mind, and there are a couple warm days now and then during the winter where you can think, okay, maybe I can go out and see a couple water snakes or something today, for example. And I found this cliff. This was in Central Texas in Round Rock in Memorial Park. I found this cliff that was full of Gryphea oysters, and I didn't know what I was looking at the time, but Gryphea, they were these Cretaceous oysters that lived at the bottom of the seabed. And this was in the Edwards Formation. I didn't know that at the time, but that would put this at well over 100 million years old. And it struck me that, I knew they were fossils, but looking at it, it just kind of struck me that I was taking these for granted. You have these extremely ancient organisms just sitting there in the rock right above you. And that gave me some introspection. I went home. I went on a huge rabbit hole of, Googling fossil discoveries in my area. And yeah, the rest was history. But there were a couple other things too. There was a cool geographic article on Ediacaran fauna, or Ediacaran fauna, however you want to pronounce it. And yeah, rest was history. Once I got interested, I was hooked.
That's kind of the same on my end. My brother, he was going up to Post Oak Creek, and I know I told you about that in our messages, but he went up to Post Oak Creek with his friend from Arizona, and he came back, and that made me want to go, so we went. It was a while ago. I might have that in the wrong order, but either way, we ended up all going to Post Oak Creek, and that's when I think I initially went there to do some fossil hunting and some herping to find some snakes. And I started the same way you did. The very beginning of my channel, when it's still Herps Unearthed, in those videos, I go out mainly just to find like water snakes and stuff. But that kind of got boring, always finding a water snake, just over and over and over water snakes.
Right, dude. Those Nerodia, they bite the heck out of you.
They do.
They're very feisty.
Yeah, I know. I saw your one post where you had, like a 5-foot one, and it had bit your wrist, and you were all bleeding everywhere.
Yeah.
I know I posted a video of me holding one, and I had a snake hook, and some guy said, "Why are you holding a non-venomous colubrid with a snake hook?" And I was like, because these guys are jerks, and I don't want to get bit.
They're jerks. That's the way to put it. Oh my goodness, yeah.
They're the worst snakes to try to catch, even the small ones. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I know we were finding like those Texanus, I'm forgetting, Texanus hermitis or something like that. I know I'm probably butchering that, but they're the fossil sea urchins from Benbrook Lake. And they're all over up here. This is tiny little guys.
Heteroaster Texanus, that one?
So,
maybe.
yeah. That's what
Yeah.
it was. So that was pretty cool. And then just the shark tooth finding at Post Oak Creek. Pretty fun finds. I know I just posted about finding that bison jaw, and that was the closest thing other than shark teeth that I've ever found to like prehistoric. The bison jaw was pretty cool. The funny thing was we actually found other bison bones that we didn't realize that's what they were, and so we left them.
Wow.
I don't know if they're still there.
I mean, it is hard. Bison is a bovid, right? It's very hard to differentiate cattle versus bison. Even in their teeth, there are some ways to differentiate bison teeth, but they aren't super reliable. But I know two bones in the whole body that I can differentiate between cattle and bison. It's the metatarsal and metacarpal, and those are basically the same bone, just different legs. So it's tough. I remember, one time I found a jaw. I was very excited about it. It was this beautiful creek. This one was in Central Texas, and Central Texas doesn't have the same sort of goodies that North Texas has, but Central Texas is quite beautiful. So hunting there is pretty cool when you get the chance. But I found a jaw just coming straight out of the bank, and I was so hyped. I thought I was in Pleistocene strata, and I did find a bison tooth, like a confirmed bison tooth, a little bit lower down in the section, a little bit lower down on the bank, just way further down creek. So I thought I was in Pleistocene strata, in the Ice Age strata. And yeah, getting it out, I do this like excavation for 2 days. I'm very careful about it. I have to go to work and back, and I'm driving to and from. I get it out, I look at this, and I go, dude, this is cow. Like,
it's a cow jaw.
Yeah, it was sad. But no, your bison jaw, very cool. And what's crazy to me, I don't know how to differentiate them yet based on their teeth. But I mean, if
I'm just going based off of the color.
Yeah, if you
based
find
off of the color on that one, yeah.
Bison, there are so many species of Pleistocene bison. Someone up in Dallas recently that I know, she helped dig up a bison latifrons. If you were to mix a bison with a longhorn, that's what you would get. It's much bigger bison, humongous horns. The thing looks awesome. And yeah, this is just lying around in Dallas. Blows my mind.
Yeah, there was right north of where I found my jaw, a lady found a bison latifron crown and horns as well. And it was probably like a half mile up the creek. But so I'm expecting that's why there's other bison bones just down creek, is because there's already been skulls and crowns and stuff found over there. Let's go ahead and get into the good, so that way we can get into some more stories of yours. So why don't you tell us some of the events that you've had that were like in the good category, just not like anything that bad happened. We'll say that for the next category, but because I know you've had like posts where you've done castings of fossils and excavations of jaws and stuff like that. So how did those go? How did those come about?
Yeah, so man, the good, there's a lot of good in this. I mean, that's kind of why I changed my career path. But man, it's good. I don't even know where to start. There's so many highlights. I'll go through it slowly. I think my my paleontology experience kind of exists in three different realms, I would say right now. You have the fossil hunter side of me, which I think every paleontologist has that fossil hunter side. It doesn't go away, no matter how academic you are. So there's the fossil hunter side. There is the academic side where we're working on papers. And there's the social media side, which is a little bit more uncommon, but that has also opened up a lot of, good opportunity as well. So I think I just have to go through that step by step. And most of my best memories, I would say, do come from the fossil hunting side of things, of course. I would say my first big find, I was pretty new to this. I was fossil hunting for maybe 8 months at this point. And I mean, it's hard. The learning curve is steep. So my first 5 months, I didn't find anything, just because I was trying to do this all on my own. But about 8 months in, I find this crazy looking tooth in a piece of jaw. And it's lying at the bottom of this bluff surrounded by limestone. So there are these limestone rocks all over the place. It looked almost like it was part of a mini landslide, right? I picked this up. I'm looking at it. I have no idea what this thing is. It looks like to me at the time. I'm thinking, this doesn't look Cretaceous. This is not shark. This is not reptile. This could only be
Yeah.
a mammal, because the tooth looks a bit like an incisor with a cusp, the way you would see in a dog, for example. It looks
Hmm.
like a dog tooth or a cat tooth. So I was freaking out. I thought I found this saber-toothed tiger tooth or something. And when I get home, there was no. I went on the fossil forum. I love the fossil forum.
Hmm.
It's this great place to get an ID and talk to like-minded people. And there was no consensus as to what I was looking at here. And once this one guy who is just an expert with mammals saw that, and he goes, "I don't know what this is. I knew we were on something pretty cool." And eventually, someone figured out it is actually fish. What I found was an incisor set in a piece of jawbone of an extremely rare type of fish from the late Cretaceous period called Hydrotus. And since
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
that find, that is the first that is the first it's not the first Hydrotus find in Texas, but most of the fossils that you find of Hydrotus in Texas are these tiny little teeth that existed in its throat. Those are called pharyngeal teeth, with the PH, pharyngeal. And they're very small. They don't tell you much about the animal, but you can find them. They're rare. This is the first material of Hydrotus that is not one of those that's ever been found in Texas. And there's no official write-up of Hydrotus in Texas. It's from
Hmm.
Alabama, mostly Alabama and Mississippi. There's one specimen that's been found in Kansas. So this little tooth on its own that I found in my first 8 months, that has opened up my potential first lead author, like main authored paper. I'm actually working
Yeah.
on it right now, and I just recruited someone as a co-author because they have some cool material as well. They're going to do a whole bunch of they're going to write up the pharyngeal teeth from North Texas. So yeah, I mean, 8 months in. And then what's crazy, so this was in August, right? So in August, in September, the following month, I'm still brand new to this. I'm totally clueless, right? My knowledge level is
Hmm.
really low. And I'm looking for a geologic formation called the Eagle Ford Formation, and I've just heard a lot about it in
I've heard of
Texas.
it.
It's
Yeah.
probably one of the most productive that you can get, as you know too.
Hmm.
But I'm just kind of explaining for other listeners. And so it's very difficult to find in my area. You live in like close to Oklahoma, around the Oklahoma border. There's Eagle Ford everywhere, all over the place.
Yeah.
But
I'm up in Fort Worth, so 2 hours to Oklahoma. So
yeah, and in
it's
Fort
pretty
Worth
much
you
all
can
over the
find it
place.
if you drive east a considerable distance. But yeah, Fort Worth is mostly in the early Cretaceous stuff. But yeah, no, I didn't have much. The Eagle Ford was kind of thin in my area. So what I was doing is I was just hitting creek after creek after creek looking for the stuff. I didn't even know how the Eagle Ford Formation looked. I had no idea what that lithology was like. Like I was totally clueless, and I hit this one creek, and it was so crazy. I was walking down. It was in an ugly part of town. It was super hot. The creek itself was super ugly. I didn't know it, but to me, with the geologist eye now, I would look at this and think it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But at the
Hmm.
time, I was like, man, this is kind of gross and nasty. And I'm walking down this creek. I sprained my ankle stepping off of a ledge, and at this point, I was just like, "This is ridiculous. Yeah, what's going on here?" And I was just kind of moping my way up. I wasn't finding anything. I was very grumbly at this point, and as I'm walking back, I sit down in a shade spot just because my ankle was throbbing now. And I
Uh-huh.
look to the left of me, I see this little slab. There's this little tooth in there. It's a Tychodus tooth, a shell crusher shark tooth. And I suddenly went, huh. And I completely forgot about my ankle pain. And I just went crazy on this. I didn't have a hammer yet or anything. I just had a knife. So I was taking my poor knife and jamming it into these slabs and
Doling the
lifting up and
tip.
looking for teeth. And this was my first time at this site, right? It was great. I go home, my ankle's still sprained, but I'm feeling pretty triumphant. I come back another time, I find a bunch of teeth, and this is looking great for me at this point. I'm thinking, hallelujah, finally found a great spot. I hype it up to my stepbrother because my stepbrother, he's not really into fossil hunting. He's into archaeology and he's a flint knapper as well. And so I'm hyping the spot up. And for the first time, because we've gone fossil hunting before, for the first time, he says he wants to go check it out too. So I was like, you know what, great. Because the third time that I went, I was finding lots of teeth. It was great. And I found this one really nice patch of shell hash. That's a really dense fossiliferous layer. And I'm working on it, and I'm essentially making this pit. I'm just sitting down and I'm digging. I'm like excavating at this point. I'm just lifting up slabs all around me, and I'm making this pit. So the next day, my stepbrother at 8 a.m., which is way too early for me, my stepbrother at 8 a.m., he drives over, he calls me, he goes, what am I looking for? What type of rock am I looking for? I told him all that. I told him what to look for. And I said, there's this spot where I was digging at the day before because I had to go to work. There's a spot that I was digging at the day before I went to work. Go look there. And I told him how to get to it. He gets to this spot, and this is 8 a.m. I'm drinking my coffee. I get a phone call 20 minutes in. He goes, hey, I found a lot of bones. And I'm like, what? I almost spat it out. I get in my car. I drive like a maniac. I drive so fast. I probably broke so many laws. I get there, and it's in the exact spot. What he did is he gets to that point where I was excavating all of those slabs, that like little excavation pit that I made the day before. He pokes around, making sure I didn't miss anything. He lifts one slab. He's like, okay, I'll expand it. He lifts one slab, and then what he saw were some neck vertebrae. I didn't know it at the time, but some vertebrae. We knew they were vertebrae, some backbones. You see some neck vertebrae, and I didn't know this at the time. There were a bunch of other bones. I didn't know what they were, but the back of a skull. So neck vertebrae, back of a skull. And I get there, and I am losing my mind. It is so crazy. So I would call it a co-find, but because I didn't see it first. But regardless, we did several excavations on this thing. Now, it took hours. Like, we spent probably 9 hours on our first excavation getting this out. The following day, we spent more. And what's crazy about it, the reason why this is an important find, is because what we saw was a tooth, and that tooth let us know that we were looking at a mosasaur. But this is the Eagle Ford Formation, where mosasaurs are extremely rare because that is way too old for most mosasaurs. So that suddenly made us realize that, well, we're looking at a scientifically significant find here. And yeah, we put so much work into that thing. I remember I came back the following February thinking, oh yeah, no, we got most of it out. We're all good. Let me just check for bone just in case. I come back the following February. I'm hammering away at a rock. I lift it up, and then I'm looking at back to back, locked in vertebrae, but really small ones of the tail. I found the end of the tail. So now we have the skull, we have the tail, we don't have anything in between, and we realize, oh, there must be a lot more of this animal in here. And it opened up so many opportunities. We done the bulk of the excavation now. In doing so, I have met up with a researcher that is probably the leading researcher in the world on early mosasaurs up at SMU, at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. And it's kind of a career starting discovery because paleontology is a notoriously difficult career to get into. But if you have a discovery like that, I mean, boom, that'll start you. I mean,
you need that reputation.
There's going to be a paper on this thing. So yeah, that was probably a highlight. And there are a couple, but I would say that's the biggest.
And the crazy thing is, we've looked in areas where there's supposed to be like large amounts of mosasaur teeth and stuff, and we've hardly ever found anything. So the fact that you found something where they're not supposed to be makes it even better.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I look in. See, you're probably talking about like the Ozone Formation, maybe in North Texas, where there should be mosasaur everywhere. I've found one tooth, and I found that tooth before I even found my first shark tooth. My luck with it was so odd because I was working like a dog to find fossils when I first started. It was demoralizing because you put so much effort in, and then you get skunked every single time. And before I even found my first shark tooth, I find a mosasaur tooth that's like this big. Excellent condition. And yeah, it was just the most bizarre thing. It's still the best isolated mosasaur tooth I've ever found.
Yeah, my brother, he's found one mosasaur tooth, and it was only a side fragment. It wasn't even the complete tooth. But last time we were at Post Oak, before we walk back in, and we have our sifters, we like to sift in the water itself, not just on the surface. So he's like, okay, I'm going to do one sift just to see what's here before we settle down in an area. And he pulls out his sifter, and he finds something that's got like, it's a fragment of a tooth clearly, but it's got like ribs on it. And he was like, what is this? And at first I was like, oh, it's mosasaur because of the ribs. But later that night he got home and looked at it, and it was a plesiosaur tooth. And we were like, what in the world?
That's awesome.
The odds that we found one there, and that it was in his very first pan of the day. And that's the same trip I found the bison jaw.
And this was at Post Oak Creek?
Yeah, it was at Post Oak Creek. And I actually have a photo of it. I might put it in the podcast for you guys to look at. But yeah, he compared it to his mosasaur tooth and then to a plesiosaur tooth that he found on the internet. And the ribbing on the tooth was much wider than the mosasaur. And it was just a small fragment of it.
That's crazy. Because if you have ribbing, if it's that strong ribbing, there's a fancy word for that ribbing. You call it apicobasal ridges. That strong ribbing, you usually see that in the pliosaurs. But what's crazy, so a pliosaur, they're these very big-headed animals. They are literally a head with flippers and a stumpy tail. Yeah, humongous heads. And the thing with pliosaurs is that they started disappearing. They were basically extinct by the end of the Turonian stage of the Cretaceous. Now, Post Oak Creek captures a moment of time where the Turonian moves into the Coniacian. That just means it captures a moment of time between, I would call it 90, let's call that like 93 million years to 87 million years. That's probably about where most of the fossils are in that time interval. Now, pliosaurs, for the most part, are extinct by then. Pliosaur material is incredibly rare. I've only heard of one specimen being found in rocks the same age as what's usually shown in Post Oak Creek. So that would be crazy if it is pliosaur. If it's a very robust tooth with these very distinct ridges on it, I would say pliosaur. If it's thinner and those ridges are a little more subtle and faint, then it could be another plesiosaur, which, you know what, also stupid rare. So
yeah, especially for that location.
That's awesome. For real.
I'll have to send you the photo so you can look at it and see what you think. It's not a huge fragment, but it's enough to see that there's ribbing on it and what it actually was.
Man, that's crazy.
All right.
That's crazy to me.
Well, that being said, let's go ahead and switch over to the bad stories. You already talked about how you sprained your ankle. Is there anything worse than you spraining your ankle?
Let's see. Getting skunked is a little demoralizing. And spraining my ankle, that's just life. I don't know how to describe it. I would say, I suppose there is a bad part to it. I don't know if I would call it bad, and more so I would just call it. It's almost exciting. Here, I'll explain. Fossil hunting, I don't think I've ever had anything truly bad happen, but deciding to go into paleontology as a career is scary. I'm not gonna lie, it's really scary. You have to think about it this way. Paleontology is one of those sciences that people universally think is cool. If an organic chemist makes an amazing discovery in organic chemistry, that's going to capture the attention of other organic chemists. That's not going to be in mainstream news. If a paleontologist discovers something huge, that gets on CNN, that gets on ABC. That's big. People find that sort of thing interesting. You would think that there would be more paleontologists then, right? There aren't. It's because it is it's not a guaranteed way of providing for yourself. You have to be really creative, and it is surprisingly difficult too. The classes you have to take are really hard. I did organic chemistry 2 last semester. I thought I was gonna die. Like, that's one of the hardest classes you can take as an undergrad. So you get pushed. But yeah, the main thing is your financial future is in question the minute you commit to this. And I'm a little too far in to back out now. And not like I would want to back out. It's just you have to embrace it and take a creative approach. That's part of the reason why I'm doing social media, because again, that's opened up a lot of good opportunities for me. And doing that allows me to, get into a society easier. It allows me to get into a program a little bit easier. There's kind of the name knowledge. If you can work with a researcher that people know about, then you'd be more willing to work with him, right? So that's an incentive to do social media, and maybe you can get a job easier if you're going to a museum, because you'll bring revenue in just by posting that, hey, I work here, here are our collections, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So you can't just you have to do more than the bare minimum if you're choosing this as a career, because otherwise I don't think you'll succeed financially. And even if you do more than the bare minimum, who knows? But I'd so much rather do this. I can't imagine myself doing anything else. I would hate it. I'm not gonna lie, I would hate it. If I had to wake up every morning not looking forward to my job, I don't know what I would do. It'd drive me crazy.
Yeah. And that being said, I understand what you're saying, because while we were out in Sulphur River, there was a guy out there and one of his friends was walking with us. And she said, yeah, he's up there and he's collecting bones because he sells them. And we were like, not many of the bones here are complete. So that's got to be a hard job, because a lot of the bones, I don't know if you've been to Sulphur, are just fragments. They're unidentifiable. You can't really tell what they are. I've only found one mosasaur radius there, and that's the only identifiable bone that I've ever found in Sulphur Creek, besides just like a couple oddball joints and stuff, but even those are worn away. But just going out and finding that stuff would be pretty crazy on its own.
The North Sulphur River is a weird place, man, because I have been there once. It was to help on an excavation that I unfortunately have to keep secret for now, I think, because it was on an impressive specimen of an unexpected type of animal for that area, and that's going to get researched. So I don't think I can say what type of animal it was, because I'm not the lead on that project, and the guy who's doing it, he's pretty secretive about that. So I'll just respect that. But no, I have been up there once. But the North Sulphur River, it's weird. I mean, some people, there's this one guy on the forum that I follow. He found a mosasaur skull on his first fossil hunt ever. He said, okay, I'll go to Ladonia Fossil Park on the North Sulphur River. He goes there, he finds a skull just in the ground. I saw a photo of it. The thing is just, boom, it's perfect. Everyone's dream. And he finds out on his first time. So stuff like that certainly is possible.
In concerns of the bad and going out, because there's always like, a lot of people won't consider the excavation and the looking around to be considered bad. But let's go ahead and classify that in this category, just because it is time consuming. It could be considered a con of going out and looking for fossils. How often are you, because I have noticed in a lot of your posts, you'll flake away cliffs and like pull away the layers and see what's in between. How often do you not find anything? Do you luck out on that?
It depends. I would say when I started, again, I have to premise this with the fact that my first 5 months of attempting to do this, I didn't find anything, any of my targets. My targets were simply just finding a shark tooth. That's what I wanted to find. I found some bivalves. I found a couple ammonite pieces that were pretty cool, but none of my targets for the first 5 months. As my experience grew, it started narrowing down to where every time I would go out, nowadays, almost every time I go out, I find something of interest. If I'm scouting a new spot, I would say about 1 in 5 of them, of the new spots that I look for, end up being productive. So it depends what you're doing. And when I'm digging in matrix, like you said, and I'm lifting up slab by slab by slab, even in my really productive spots, even in my site where my mosasaur is, that's it's hit or miss. It was more productive when I started, but yeah, no, these days I'll find some stuff, but maybe, again, it depends even on the lens and the layer that you're in. But if I'm in a good layer, I'll find something every 4 or 5 slabs. Yeah.
Have you ever been up to Black Cat Mountain?
I have not. I don't know where that is.
It's just north of the Oklahoma border, but it is private property, so you have to contact the landowner. But it's one of the best. I don't know if they actually can classify it as the number one, but one of the best places to find trilobites in North America.
Yeah.
And I've been tempted to go up there, but it's the same thing. You have to flake apart the layers of stone to get to the trilobites, and that's what's been deterring me. Because as a YouTuber making videos, I don't know if I can dedicate 9 or 10 hours a day to try to find that one trilobite that's in the mountain, and so that's been like my deterrent, trying to find time to go up there. And
if it's one of the best places in the U.S. or one of the best places in the U.S., I don't think it'll take 9 or 10 hours. You'll want to spend 9 or 10 hours there for the most part if
Yeah.
you're making fun. That's how I am with most of my spots. Though it's interesting that you bring up as a YouTuber. I don't know if I can spend that time doing, because I'm doing social media as well, and I'm actually starting a YouTube channel. I'm very slow to edit my first video.
I've been wondering when that was going to happen.
Yeah, it's been I took a bunch of footage, and I kind of realized that I'm so used to filming for TikTok that there's so much stuff that I kind of consider necessary for YouTube that I just straight up didn't film. So I have to be creative about it. But yeah, the video's coming along slowly. But yes, it does take a lot of time. Being an influencer and doing social media stuff, it feels like a job, even though half the time it's not paying your bills. I mean, TikTok pays me shekels. I get gas money if I'm lucky, which, you know what? Gas money, I'm happy with. Gas money
that pays for your trip.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, a lot of our trips, because I normally go out and record when we're traveling for work. So we normally only get maybe 3 hours at max to go out on one of these trips. Occasionally when we go to Post Oak Creek, we'll have like a 6-hour day. But me and my brother, we both have kids, so we got to get back for our kids and our wives. And so it's just time management, trying to get out there and find this stuff, but being on a time limit. It stinks sometimes, but it is what it is. All right, that being said, the hilarious. What stories do you have that are, even if it's just to you, absolutely hilarious?
When it comes to fossil hunting, I don't know. It's fossil hunting is tedious more than it is funny. Maybe that's kind of funny about it. But there've been some weird moments and some unsightly discoveries I've made. One time I was in a creek, and hopefully this is appropriate enough. I accidentally stumbled across some lovers, and I went, nope, never mind. But I was going to a big that I really wanted to see, and so I had to bushwhack my way around these two people so I don't barge in on them. And I bushwhack my way around, and I eventually come to the edge of this cliff, and I just had to use my geology hammer, grappling hook my way down, and then I kept walking up the creek.
Didn't want to go by them.
Yeah. So that was actually not even that long ago. That was a couple months ago. It was interesting. But
we came across some like that in Oklahoma underneath a bridge. We were nighttime herping, and we didn't even know they were there.
Under a bridge?
We were out with our flashlights, and we were just passing under the interstate to go to the next field. And we hear a guy go, huh? And he looks up, and we panned over, and there was a guy and a girl laying on the ground, and we were like, oh my gosh, and we just walked away. We were like, I'm so sorry. Why under the bridge, though? That was my question.
Yeah.
It was such an awkward find.
Yeah. That was probably the only time where I've really been like, geez, like that was pretty funny. But yeah, there are other times, sometimes you're on a big exposure, you're on this huge bluff, and I have been telling myself that I want to buy cleats for these exposures for the longest time, and I haven't done it. So you're up there and you're slipping and sliding, and it's a pretty precarious point, especially when I'm with my stepbrother, throwing things at each other, just sabotage each other. But yeah, no, that's about it. I would say coming across those people in the creek, not as bad as a bridge. Coming across those people in the creek was probably the...
When we were in Mississippi, we were at W.M. Browning Cretaceous Park, and I had the bright idea. Where we were going specifically, I had to cross over like a body of the river, and I don't know why, I decided to stand on top of a log that was probably about 4 inches around, and I was just standing like 2 feet out above the water, and the log broke, and I had my backpack on, all of my gear, my camera, my GoPro, my microphone, and it's actually the camera I'm using for this podcast. I've soaked this camera, I think 3 times, like completely submerged because I fell in a river. And I've ruined 2 microphones. I'm clumsy.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm like, that has to happen to everyone. It's ridiculous. All right, well, that being said, it was pretty cool having you on the podcast, because like I said, you're my first podcaster, and that's something that I do myself. Of course, I'm not nearly educated as you are. You know all the proper terms and stuff. I just find what shows up in my pan and call it good. But
yeah, that's the spirit of it,
Yeah, it would be cool. And I also told my wife when I was first talking to you to get you on the podcast that I do see a big future for you just because of the finds that you've already found in the state of Texas. And how old are you actually?
22.
22. So yeah, you're still very, very young. So I'm like, he's already made a name for himself. Look at his social media and then the stuff that you've already found. So I can guarantee you, you're gonna go big at some point.
Well,
I mean, you're already big in the terms of a 22-year-old.
Fury Field, yeah.
Yeah, but all right, well, that was awesome. Cool. I would say at some point try to still schedule out to go fossil hunting with you, but we are actually moving to Florida. April 1st, we're going to be officially moved into Florida. I mixed the 2 months up.
Wow, that's real backwoods and full of megalodon teeth.
Yep, that's
awesome. One
of the main things we're excited for is going out and finding meg teeth. So it's going to be fun going out there and seeing what we can find. I want to try to get connected with the other YouTubers out there like Paleo Chris and Wild Kyle and stuff like that, and see if I can.
Contact.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to contact.
Oh, I've tried.
I wanted to, and this was when I had a following already. I was like, "What camera do you use for YouTube?" I'm just curious because his film quality is a good film quality, but it's not over the top. So I figured whatever be like manageable for a YouTuber, and no, I couldn't get to him. So
yeah, it's been hard. I know that the hardest thing is I've gotten responses from people's managers, which is hilarious because the manager will tell me no, but then the person will message me and say that they might consider it. Like sometimes you just got to go around their managers, but sometimes it's just ridiculously hard to contact them.
Does he have a manager? That'd be surprising.
All right, I'll let you go.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you for joining me though.
Mm-hmm.
All right, have a good one. All right, guys, that's it for this podcast, and I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast with Jared Cooke as much as I did. If you guys like this video, make sure to like it, subscribe to this channel, and I will see you guys on the next adventure.